It's a world of mystery. Do you really want to know? We should take a journey together to a special place, but not just any place. This is a historical place with many historical artifacts, mysterious stories, but ultimately a tale of the sun. This journey begins in a famous city called Rome, and as we enter Italy and start getting closer to the Vatican City, we finally arrive at St. Peter's Square, a monumental and very important location. I know your first question is, why is it such an important location? Well, first, I have to start by explaining some of the historical artifacts that are there, and I have to start at none other than the obelisk, sitting in the center of St. Peter's Square. So I'm sure by now you're saying, hey Data, what's so darn important about this obelisk? Well, let me tell you, this is not just any obelisk. This is the obelisk. This is a large pink granite obelisk. It is at the center of the square. It was hewn or made from a single block, and it stands 25.31 meters high, and it's on a base of 8.25 meters wide. This obelisk comes from nowhere other than, you won't believe it, Heliopolis, Egypt. This obelisk was built by the pharaoh Menkaure in 1835 BC. And why was it built? It was built in honor of the sun. And then it was brought to Rome in 37 BC by Emperor Caligula and erected in the circus that he built. But the Pope in 1586, Sixtus V, had it moved to the center of St. Peter's Square, and this was quite an operation for that time. It required hundreds of men, lots of horses, and this is what it looked like. This was before all the colonnades were built. The obelisk was one of the first things there. And on a total side note, I've seen many Egyptian obelisks, and they all have carvings, engravings, hieroglyphics, and messages in them, except for this one in the center of St. Peter's Square. I wonder if there's anything written underneath there, because this is the only one that seems completely smooth. It's very interesting. Nonetheless, I digress. Moving on. And as we continue, it'll be important to note that we are looking east from the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. East is a very important direction. This particular camera shot was pretty much on point. It is just a little bit off center, but you can tell that the obelisk is directly east from the viewing area on top of the balcony. Now that we have figured out which direction east is, west, we can also determine north and south. And now, is it starting to take shape? Can you kind of see it? It looks like a big clock. The obelisk in the middle with the shadow seems to be pointing at noon when this image was taken. And to say this was just a clock would be to miss the true genius of how this place was constructed and what they did way back then in the 1600s when the Pope started the project. Would it be shocking to also find out that it's not only just a clock where the visitors can tell the time of day, also a zodiac, but I will show you how. It is also a zodiac with the clock telling the time of the day and the zodiac telling the time of the year or the seasons. Now join me as we venture deeper into the mystery of the seasons and the sky clock. A lot of this is going to have to do with Easter. Here's what it looks like. You can see that there's a cross in there, and it has the obelisk as the center point. That's the sundial. And when the sun is over here, because that's facing east, this is north, south again. When the sun goes through the equator on Easter, it rises up to Cancer, and there's a shadow on that obelisk. You see the shadow will go this way, and it'll send it to this particular statue on the colonnade. Perfect alignment on the colonnade. And this particular statue right here is lined up with that. So as it goes from summer, autumn, winter, spring, summer, autumn, winter, spring, it'll always cast a shadow in that cross. So what I'm showing you, these are the solstices, and this is the equilibrium. So when the Pope comes out here, he's looking east. The sun is rising right there. It's crossed over into the Lamb of God. The Lamb of God will be right here. And we'll go through the season, starting with Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and then it goes into Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, and back to Aries, crossing over. So as you can see, the people that built this structure knew exactly what they were doing. They measured everything out precisely with the solar events of the solstices. It's actually quite amazing. It's a large clock and a calendar, both at the same time. And as amazing as this place is, I don't think we'd be finished unless we looked at the obelisk itself in Egypt and Heliopolis. What is the connection there? Let's go see if we can find anything interesting. And did we ever find something? Here's a picture of a sunset over the water. You can see the line that is tracing across the water. And interestingly enough, placing an obelisk in that line of light creates an obelisk pointing at the sun, pointing at Ra. I'll get back to this picture of the sun in a moment. Let's take a look at what obelisks are. Obelisks were revered monuments and deeply associated with the sun god Ra. Interestingly enough, Ra, and in today's modern language we use the word ray, sun ray, associated to Ra. These obelisks were placed near temples and were believed to represent the sun's rays descending from the sky, connecting heaven and earth. The obelisk's shape is a tall, tapering structure topped with a pyramid, and was likely inspired by the sun's pillar, a natural light phenomenon, which I just showed you. Obelisks were the center symbol of Ra, the sun god, and were often associated with his temple at Heliopolis. Now that's the important part, because the Vatican obelisk came from Heliopolis, the city of the sun, where they revered Ra. Sometimes these rays were considered petrified rays, and that could also be what the obelisk represents. But there's more. The ancients were very aware of the sun and its role in everyday life. Without the sun, no life exists. So they studied it and revered it and created symbols for it. Here, I'll show you one right now. Have you ever seen the Ankh? It is a perfect representation of what we're looking at. The sun on the horizon and the streak of light coming down. It represents life. In ancient Egyptian mythology, Horus and Set are represented as bitter rivals who contest the throne left by Osiris. Osiris is the lord of the underworld. The conflict is primarily focused on the succession of the throne, with Horus eventually emerging victorious and establishing himself as the rightful king. Now this goes back to the sun. Horus rises, the sun reaches the top at high noon, and then the sun sets. And the two brothers are the sunset and the sunrise, and they're always battling on which one will be high noon, and they're always battling. And the victorious one is, that's right, Horus. The sun also explains how the pharaohs thought of themselves as the rulers or direct descendants of the sun, the god. And you can see that in the beard. The beard represents the line across the water, and the pharaoh is the sun. So after all that, where does that leave us? Well, it tells me that the people of the past knew a great deal about the sun, its movements, and how it related to their daily lives. They had to know when the seasons were coming so they could plant crops, etc. Their lives depended on it. It's no wonder that they revered the sun as the Almighty, for it truly does and is the giver of life. In our previous episode, we looked at what I thought was one of the largest timepieces or sundials or sky clocks in the world. And yet I was wrong. Join me now as I travel to a new destination. I'm going to be heading towards America and Washington, D.C. And as I enter the area, I begin to notice another very large east to west monumental construction for the seasons. But it's so much more than that because everything was set up, constructed in a perfect alignment. Now would be a good time to jump right in and let's look at the Washington Monument. I'm going to indicate this side is east, here's west, north, south. Next up is the equatorial line where the spring vernal equinox happens, and it also has to do with Easter, but we'll get back to that in a little bit. This is also indicating the summer solstice and the winter solstice. The equatorial line is also the point of equilibrium, the balance point of two halves. We'll come back to that word in a little bit. It'll be important as I show you more of the complex. And the north amplitude wave and the south amplitude wave of the sun when it hits the solstices. Now is a good time. I want to take a pause and show you something really cool. Now that we understand the east-west alignment, you can see the Washington Monument here, and all the way over in a perfect line is the Capitol. What is significant about the Capitol? There is the equilibrium, the two halves in balance. Not only is it super cool, but it shows the genius in the construction of the entire area. On the spring equinox, the sun rises through the Capitol. This particular photo is off-center. It's able to align the buildings, but if we were dead center, we would also see it rising through the Capitol building on the day of equilibrium. Going back to the obelisk, I'm going to show how it works like a sundial, and in this particular image that I'm showing, it does look like it is at noon, and the sun is directly south, that putting the shadow directly north, that would be about noon. And as I overlay the sundial, because the map does not appear to have numerical notations or any symbols or structures out there to really signify that this is a clock. But every obelisk can be used as a timepiece. So you can get a general idea of what time of day it is when you're there. But it's more than just a clock. To count the hours, the sun just goes in this direction and we watch it go around the obelisk, telling us the time. But to tell the seasons or the time of year is a much larger calendar. When the sun rises here in the east, it is on East Star or Easter. It is a time where the year is split in half and the sun will start rising every morning and going northward towards the summer solstice. It goes through the entire zodiac. So it looks like this: summer, autumn, winter, spring. Back to summer, autumn, winter, spring. And Aries, the constellation, is right about here. And then we can go through the zodiac of Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, and back, passing over into the Lamb of God, into the time of abundance, into the promised land, into spring and summer. And when the sun is in the winter and autumn, it is below the equilibrium. That is a time of harvest and of winter darkness. Since we know the line of equilibrium, we could say that in the spring and summer, the sun walks through the land of the living, and when it crosses below the equilibrium, it goes into the darkness. Some would also say the sun is traveling through the underworld. Now, where have I heard this before? Something about as above, so below. The ancient Egyptians had a story of Ra, the sun god, the Almighty, who was there at high noon and who would descend and become Set. Set had to go down and battle Osiris in the underworld. And when Set arose, he had to battle Horus, his other brother, and Horus always won the battle and became the sunrise and was able to become the Almighty Ra. So it's basically a story of the day, or in deeper symbolism, it could be the story of life. It is a story of time. Looking back at our east-west alignment, we must note that on the west end is Abraham Lincoln, and on the equinoxes, he is perfectly aligned and centered and lit up and always looking at the sun. It's pretty amazing. Let's see what it says above Abraham Lincoln. In this temple, as in the hearts of the people, for whom he saved the Union, the memory of Abraham Lincoln is enshrined forever. So what is this temple? I think the temple is the entire complex with the sun shining through, illuminating different areas and giving the time of the days and years. And it's interesting, and probably no correlation, that Abraham is the first name of the person staring at the obelisk. Abraham is such an interesting first name. I'm sure there's no correlation. This is strictly speculation and mythology. In ancient Egypt, Abraham was not the name of a person, but it represented the word sun god, or sun, born out of the pyramid. And this happened, and it was part of their creation myth. Is there anywhere in this area that we could find a pyramid? Let's see. Well, I found one. It just so happens there is a pyramid, and it is the capstone of the Washington Monument. And it may surprise you to find out that that is made out of aluminum. I think it's approximately 9 inches tall, and it is a pyramid where the sun is born. That was going to be my dramatic ending, but I can't leave this video without mentioning the owl at the Capitol building. Everybody's seen this. You can pull this up on your map. Yes, it's there, but what is its meaning? It's been mysterious to people. Is it good? Is it bad? Well, looking into ancient Egypt for a definition, it goes like this. The owl is associated with wisdom and knowledge. The owls were considered as protective and guardian figures in ancient Egypt due to its association with the night and its ability to see in the dark. Ancient Egyptians believed that there is an eternal struggle between life, day, represented by the sun, and chaos, death, and darkness, represented by the night, aimed to swallow the sun. And they believed the owls had the power to protect in the darkness and in the afterlife. The story of Ra begins with the creation of the world. According to ancient Egyptian beliefs, Ra emerged from the primordial waters of chaos, called Nun. He created himself and then gave birth to the first gods, Shu, known as air, and Tefnut, known as moisture. These deities went on to produce Geb, also known as earth, and Nut, the sky, completing the creation of the world as the Egyptians knew it. Ra was believed to travel across the sky in his solar boat during the day, bringing light to the world. At night, he journeyed through the underworld, fighting off evil forces to ensure the sun would rise again. This daily cycle symbolized the eternal struggle between order and chaos. Every night, Ra battles the serpent Apophis, the embodiment of chaos. This struggle ensures the sun rises each day, symbolizing the triumph of order over disorder. Ra's nightly journey through the underworld is fraught with danger, as he must navigate the dark and treacherous realm while protecting the world from Apophis's evil forces. This story highlights Ra's role as a protector and maintainer of balance in the realm. A new study on the Egyptian pyramids has caused quite a stir worldwide. Researchers from Italy and Scotland claimed there is a huge underground city extending over 6,500 feet beneath Giza pyramids. That's 10 times larger than the pyramids themselves. This was discovered based on the use of pulse radar devices by experts to create high-resolution images deep underground beneath the structures, in the same way that sonar radar is used to map the depths of the oceans. This study revealed the presence of 8 vertical cylindrical structures extending over 2,100 feet beneath the pyramid, in addition to additional unknown structures at a depth of 4,000 feet. Ra, the sun god, was honored through the houses of life. What does that mean? The houses of life are the different seasons, and where Ra set in the west would indicate the time of season, or the equinox, the equilibrium, the splitting of the year. Where we go into spring and summer, it's the land of milk and honey. Or if we go into winter, that's more of harvest and darkness. The seasons truly are the houses of life, and the Egyptians knew exactly how to foretell the seasons and the coming of the year.